Serious married couples, what advice would you give to young couples? Sit down once a month and look over your finances. Always have a master plan on what both of you want, then work together towards that. Communication is everything. Laugh at yourself more than you laugh at them. Fight fair. Both of your families are batshit crazy, don't hold that against each other. Little love gestures go a long ways. Hold hands in public. Save money and create wealth. Head scratches and back rubs have done more for my love life than nice dinners, new cars, and flowers. Know each other's love language. The rule of 5, every 5 weeks, go out on a nice date, every 5 months, take a weekend vacation, and every 5 years, take a 2-week vacation. Compliment them when they look amazing. To generalize this, adjust your marriage to what works best for you, regardless of the norm. Lots of people sleep in different beds not because anything is wrong but because that is how they work best as a couple, whether sleep schedules, snoring, whatever makes sleeping together tough. Also, if there is a repeated issue or fight, step back and see how to avoid it. A friend is not a planner. But when we go somewhere and it's not open or full or whatever, she doesn't have a backup plan and it starts a fight. Her hubs every time. They could avoid these fights by simply making a quick backup plan before leaving. Here are 2 of the best advices that one of our Ninong's primary sponsors said when we announced our plan to marry. 1. Marry when you are both ready, and 2. You should be able to accept every fault and weakness in your partner's being. If you do, then you're ready to get married. 2 is very good advice since I've seen a lot of failed marriages wherein both parties are either completely incompatible or have issues with each other's personalities, habits, and lifestyle choice, and they expect marriage will either fix that or the things that each hate will somehow improve. Expect that nothing that drastic will change with your partner after marriage. She is a slob and doesn't wash properly. She'll still be a slob the next hour after you said your vows. He keeps getting on your nerves by being a smartass and a sarcastic sob. Guess what? He'll still be that way the next morning after the reception. When getting in arguments, try your best not to cross the line. However, there will be arguments, there will be rough patches, there will be times where you won't want to be in the same room. Choose those arguments wisely and ask yourself before you engage, is it worth it? Sometimes it is, and that's okay. Keep your problems in-house. Everyone is an expert when it comes to relationships, so if you tell people about your problems they will have advice, and at some point if you keep going to those people and just constantly venting about problems, many people will say you need to leave that person. It's none of their business and you're the only person who can make that decision. That being said, marriage truly is a wonderful thing. Having a partner in crime to share your life with, having children, creating a home, doing it both your way is awesome. Sometimes you won't even feel like you're married, you just feel like kids playing house, but you actually have a house with children. Even when money gets to be tight, you're tired and sleep deprived, knowing you have someone to go through it with you no matter what is an amazing feeling. We have been married for 13 years, together for 15. Spend quality time together. Shut off your phones and go for a walk, cook a meal together, find a hobby you both enjoy. Heck, you can have a lot of fun just doing household chores together. If you don't spend time together, you are going to drift apart. I was severely burned in a brush fire 5 years ago, and was diagnosed with brain cancer a year later. My burn broke me, I fell into a terrible pit of depression. I spent most of the next year lying on the couch pissed off at the world. All of my relationships deteriorated in that time just because I separate myself from everything. But our marriage suffered the most. Unfortunately, my diagnosis made things even worse. My prognosis was quite grim. People in my position live for an average of 37 weeks. I have seen other people go through similar things. One of 2 things usually happens. It will draw them closer together, or one or both people will use destructive coping mechanisms to help cope with the fear and pain. Once we realized what was happening, we started coming closer together again. When we were newly married, we spent a lot of time fishing. Just the two of us on a riverbank sitting on buckets trying to catch fish. The beauty of time like that is there is nothing to distract you from each other. It gives you a lot of time to just talk and get to know each other better. I've had 2 cancer recurrences that looked like it was the beginning of my end. I just started a new treatment that is working very well. We've been able to get back fishing a lot this summer, sometimes just the two of us, and sometimes we take the kids along too. Find out your best way to communicate. Mine is to just be quiet for an hour or so. I go through the problem in my head and look at it from all angles. Half the time I actually realize I'm being unreasonable or irrational, and the other half I figure out how to best phrase what I want to say. This also gives me time to figure out if I'm really bothered by this enough to fight about it. My husband knows my process now and just leaves me to figure myself out and talk when I'm ready. For other people, it's best to write letters to their partner, that they can read and amend accordingly before leaving it out for them to read. Some need to discuss it then and there, some later on. Personally, I think either way it's best to think for 10 minutes first. It stops you lashing out in the heat of the moment, and if you aren't angry after 10 minutes then it's probably not worth fighting over anyway. Tell your partner your best way to communicate so they know what's going on. Sometimes it's better to have 2 separate things than to compromise on one thing. This can be anything from stocking 2 different types of toilet paper, having separate electronics, or even sleeping in separate bedrooms. Some people just love telling happy couples how they're going to be unhappy one day. They'll tell you wait until, you've been together X years, you move in together, you get married, you have kids, your kids leave the nest, etc. Don't let these people influence you. Your relationship doesn't have to conform to anyone's standards but your own. You don't have to get married, have kids, wear wedding rings, be monogamous, as long as you both enthusiastically agree to whatever arrangement you have, change your last name, live together, sleep in the same bed, both have a career, etc. As long as you're both happy, it can look however you want it to. If you want to survive more than a decade in a marriage, be prepared to listen to your spouse. Not just to let them speak, but listen, engage. You want to be heard, so hear the other. When negative emotions get too intense, don't jump to blame the spouse. It's hard. Try to find ways to interrupt the feeding of negativity from each other's cycle. Take a 5-minute break, claim you need a bio break if nothing else. The physical and temporal distancing will help folk calm down. Also, as soon as you calm down, hug the other person and provide some sort of positive physical contact. Goes without saying, keep reinforcing positives and make positive statements frequently. Everybody wants to be loved, and you have to be there for each other. Oh, one last thing, don't ever take someone else's side against your spouse in public. If they are in the wrong, can happen often, you must find ways to correct that behavior discreetly. If that really doesn't work, because people are obstinate, try to create a distraction, find an excuse, then talk to your spouse in private. I've been married almost 20 years and that is the part I see so many young couples struggling with. They want to start out with the perfect fairy tale wedding and will spend years planning every minute detail yet won't plan out the 20+ years that comes after. That's the most important part. My wedding day was a blur. I couldn't even tell you the flavor of the cake or what my meal was. Yet the last 20 years I distinctly recall the discussions with my spouse over expectations from each other, conflicts with careers, planning our family, medical scares, and deciding to move to the other side of the country. I feel like if they put half the effort into their marriage as they did their wedding day they would be happier and more successful. Instead they just expect everything to fall into place after they say I do. Communication, understanding, and empathy. Communication is a foundational cornerstone of a relationship. If that isn't there and either of you don't feel you can speak to each other freely, at some point the relationship will break down. Understanding. You won't always see eye to eye or have the same interest level in something, and that is okay. My wife loves to go hiking. I fucking hate it. I don't hate the outdoors, I just hate driving an hour to get somewhere to walk uncomfortably to a spot that she likes so she can take 1,000 pictures while I am bored out of my mind. I do it because she likes it and she likes that I come along. She is willing to go to things and do things with me that she has zero interest in. It's okay to not like the same things, but that doesn't mean you can't show some interest. I hate hiking, but there have been a couple hikes and walks that ended up being amazing and awesome that I wouldn't have otherwise known about. Empathy. You need to be able to at least try and see things from their point of view. One day after we had moved in together, my wife had been out all day and wasn't due back until long after I had been done with work. I figured it was perfect because I could watch an episode of one of my shows while I waited, then when she got home we could go get some food. She walks in the door with about 10 minutes left in my show. We say hi and I hear her toss her keys down and then walk into the kitchen. After a few minutes I hear her moving around upstairs. I figured she had gone to the bathroom and was upstairs getting ready to go out to dinner. After a half hour I went upstairs and all the lights were out. Maybe she was just exhausted and wanted to sleep, no big deal. Here is what she saw. After being out in the sun all day and driving for an hour and a half to get home, she comes in and I barely acknowledge her, and even when she went upstairs I didn't come look for her for a half hour. She was pissed off. We both saw the same thing, and we saw it differently. That shit will happen a lot. Understanding that you both have different viewpoints will go a long way to avoiding blow-ups and misunderstandings and arguments. Several random ones. Remember, when you are mad at your partner, that is normal. You two have linked destinies now. The way I think of it, I'm pissed at myself frequently, so I can't expect to not be pissed at someone I'm close with. It would be sociopathic to not be frustrated with each other, or yourself, from time to time. But treat your partner as you would treat yourself. By that I mean acknowledge the anger but don't dwell on it. Take time to cool off in the moment, then approach your partner as if you were having a monologue to better yourself. Everyone makes mistakes or misjudges or has a lapse in empathy. The goal isn't to undo the anger or mistake it for something being wrong. The goal is to reduce the future anger. You and your partner will change. That's part of the fun. Don't mourn the loss of your younger days, but embrace the novelty of the now. Modern couples have a harder go at it compared to many generations. They are expected to be friends, business partners, lovers, emotional support, family, coaches, co-parents and more. Not many generations ago and people didn't get married expecting all of those things from the other. People used to get married for utility, love was a fortunate byproduct. With that, know that your partner may fall short on one or many of those things from time to time. I think most people are better off if they don't rely on their partner for 100% of their humanistic needs. Find a group of friends that you hand out occasionally that's just for you, D&D nights, martial arts, painting, whatever. Find a mentor that you can get a third perspective on when you can. Older generations were often more close with their extended families or church group or co-workers and could form other social bonds that is good for the human spirit. Modern culture has less readily accessible social circles unless you make an effort to form them. There is a common statistic that old men frequently die shortly after their spouses because they don't have any social connection. In this vein, I think the "I married my best friend" trope can do harm if people misinterpret the implications of it. Edit, I'm even seeing it in this thread. My best friend is my brother. I do not want to have sex with him, or live with him. My wife is amazing and great support and we see eye to eye on finances and lifestyle and many other important things. Neither of those two people will talk philosophy with me, which I love to do, but that doesn't mean they're the wrong person. The key is to realize that they each have roles in my life and sometimes my wife falls short on the storybook optimum partner. But we work great because we both realize this and make each other better for it. I encourage her to pursue her hobbies and am supportive when she needs it. But there are better people to give her advice. Hearing a lecture from your significant other is rarely effective. But we are a team and work to make each other better as it is mutually beneficial to do so. It makes me happy to see her happy, and I want her to trust me as much as I trust her. So I don't talk behind her back in a malicious way, but I can sometimes consult with friends to see what they would do in a situation we have. Those friends may even tell me when I've misjudged the situation. I wouldn't trade it for single life for $1 million, but as with anything in life, there are trade-offs. Different angle to most here, but don't assume a long-term relationship means you need to get married, or that they're the one. I hit the point of proposing when realizing my life would be infinitely better with than without my other half, and ever since that has guided any disagreements, as no petty disagreement is worth being without them / they do make my life better. However, I see some people get engaged and they really don't have that stance. They feel they are settling or taking a leap of faith, or that they've been together too long to not be engaged and kinda know it won't work. Don't let what you think the world expects of you drive any big decisions. Get engaged if you feel a life with that person is better than a life without them / with somebody else. Split up if you genuinely don't feel that way. Or just let it glide along and see how things go if you haven't made up your mind. Similarly, if you get engaged and regret it, no matter how scary it is to pull out of an engagement with thousands committed in wedding costs, it's nothing compared to the pain of divorce. Don't even get me started once kids get involved. Planning a wedding may be a good test if you've never truly seen your partner under stress before / if they were slightly holding back while hoping for you to pop the question. You don't always need to fix things. Ever tried to comfort someone and they got mad? That's when you back off, tell them kindly that you're there for them when they're ready, then go do something else. After a while, they'll slink back. Pretend like nothing happened. Do this a few times, and they probably won't do that anymore. Choose your battles. If everything is worth fighting over, the time when it really matters, their attitude will be, there they go again. And they won't know that this time it's real. Always treat each other like adults. You don't have the right to control each other. If the other person isn't doing anything illegal, immoral, or in violation of your agreements to each other, let it go. Figure out your finances right away. This is one of the biggest things couples fight over, and you need to come up with a solution early. My husband and I use the yours, mine, and ours method. We have agreed on what is a fair amount for us each to contribute to a joint account for shared expenses, and what we each have left over from our paychecks is ours to spend how we like. Agree early about family. If one person is really close to their family and the other isn't into family at all, a compromise has to be reached early and honored. Get the book The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, and both of you should read it. The TLDR is, we all generally communicate in our own personal love language, not necessarily our partner's love language. The book gives both people a framework for having discussions about their personal needs without making the conversation hostile or defensive. It can feel weird and awkward at first, because finding out your partner wants, say, gifts and kind words and you aren't used to showing love like that. But you want them to communicate in your love language, maybe sex. It can feel like a weirdly artificial trade, but knowing that you are both putting in effort to make your partner feel loved is the real value of the system. After years of fighting and poor communication between my wife and I, we went through this, and now I try to help out more around the house so she gets some free time, and she reciprocates with sex, and it's a win/win. Laugh together, be patient and understanding when one or the other is having a hard time. Don't be frightened to admit you were wrong. Have exciting sex. Find shared interest but also give them time for individual interests. Be open about how stuff makes you feel. Your partner is not a mind reader and husbands need as much attention in compliments and affection just as a woman does. Tell them you love them often. Tell them when you have really enjoyed doing something together, and that can be just as simple as sitting watching a film or sitting in your garden. Offer to make them a drink. Keep touching each other like you did when you first met, i.e. holding hands, cuddling. Life can take over, but keep doing all of the above. You'll still fight and argue or disagree, but that's life, but only a part of it. Have fun together.